So into this video, we're gonna be revisiting my favorite point and shoot camera, which happens to be the Leica D-Lux 8. Every time I travel, it is in my camera bag, no matter what I carry. Now, the one thing is that I use this camera as a filler for everything in between, and also for those days that I don't wanna carry a heavy setup and I wanna have tons of flexibility. And this video is sponsored by Crown camera straps and accessories right here in Miami, Florida. Now take a look at this Trail Flex adjustable flat rope strap that allows you to go from 32 inches chest carry all the way to 58 inches for carry around the waist or even below. Designed for the everyday carrier, this camera strap is minimalist to be light, easy to carry, and super comfortable. If you want to learn more about our products, go to allcrown.com. And if you're ready to order, follow the link down in the description for 10% on your first order. Now, another thing that I want to mention is that I have one camera, natural light, and I'm here in New York at a hotel, so you're going to see me doing this pretty often. But let's actually talk about one of the main misconceptions about this camera body. And it is the fact that this camera features a micro four thirds sensor with a resolution of 17 megapixel. So with that aside, a lot of people are thinking that 17 megapixel is not good enough, but I have printed 17 by 24, 24 by 36, and the image quality coming out of this camera is outstanding. And the other thing is that the colors coming out of these cameras are really nice. And in most cases, you're gonna find yourself not having to edit, your photos if you choose the right picture profile. Now, the way I use this camera is as a filler from everything in between my 35mm. Now let's talk about some accessories that are going to be non-negotiable for me and also to get the utmost image quality from the D-Lux 8. Now the first one is gonna be a quality wrist strap, and the one that I have right here is by my company Crown. I leave a link down below if you wanna check it out with 10% off, by the way. A wrist strap for me is a better choice for this type of cameras because of several reasons. Number one, this camera is actually small, and when I put in my camera bag, I just pull the wrist strap and it makes it a lot easier to retrieve the camera. But also it allows me to toggle between my full frame and the D-Lux 8 with ease. So if I'm taking some shots with this camera, then I can just let it drop and continue with my full frame. And remember, I used this camera as a filler in between everything. The 35 may be not wide enough or not telephoto enough. And then, I have on my other hand, the D-Lux 8, which has a zoom lens that goes from 24 to 75 millimeters from f1.8 and then all the way to f2.8, which it caps right there. So you have somewhat a fast telephoto lens. Of course, micro four thirds, you gotta account for the crop factor and also the aperture factor, but it's plenty of bright in my opinion, and you can even get great shallow depth of field at 75 millimeters. I show some examples, as I go with this review. So yeah, some people are gonna say that this is too long, but it is way shorter than actually having another full frame body with a 24 to 70, and whenever you want the lens to disappear, it becomes really pocketable. Now let's talk about another accessory, and it's going to be that filter that you see right there. This camera is not weather seal, but now I have a UV filter with Pro Mist 1/4. This is where I really found the images appealing to me, talking to me. Because at the beginning, I felt that the look of the sensor straight up looks a little bit too digital. And by having a Pro Mist filter of 1/8 or 1/4, I feel that it eases that sharpness a little bit more, and also it adds that bloom glow in areas of highlight, which it appeals to me a lot. Now that may be your cup of tea or not, but I recommend that you give it a try, and I think that the happy medium is going to be a 1/8. Give it a try. And also, I have the Leica grip, but this one attaches with this knob right here, which it allows you to remove it really quick. And as you can see, if you want to remove it to access the battery, because the battery and the SD is going to be in that compartment. It's really easy, and the comfort is really, really amazing. And the other thing is that I like it because it's not an aggressive grip. It gives you enough leverage to make the gripping of this camera really comfortable. And the icing in the cake is going to be some sort of thumb support. This is a prototype that we're working on, but it gives you, enough leverage there to operate the camera. And I think that when you have it in combination with a grip, it makes it really, really comfortable. Of course, you could do just well with a wrist strap alone, but if you're looking to carry this camera for hours, like I do sometimes, 10 hours on the street, I discovered that I want to have the utmost comfort, in this tiny little body, because if you see, this camera is very, very small. Now, another great feature of this camera is that right now we have USB-C, but I have discovered this accessory not too long ago. And this one is by this company, Wasabi, and the one that I bought was this charger, which is very small, and it can charge 2 batteries, and it also came with 2 of these batteries. Now, these Wasabi batteries are compatible with the Leica batteries. They give you the same battery life, and you don't get any weird message in the camera. That happens sometimes when using non-proprietary batteries. So this one by Wasabi allows you also to charge via USB or micro USB. And I travel with this every single time. And because I already lost the original lens cap, I would recommend that you buy one of these disposable cheap lens caps. 43 millimeters, the filter size that you want for these. Also, this lens cap is more refined and minimalist, and that's all you need here. Now, there's another solution, which is the built-in auto open and close pedal type of hood. I list the picture right here, but I don't like that one because I feel that dust can still get in the lens and it doesn't protect it very well. So for that reason alone, I just go with a standard conventional lens cap. Now, one of the main reasons I like the Dlux 8 over the Dlux 7 or any of the other system point and shoot out there is because how simple the menus are, the buttons, and in reality, the menus and button layout is the same as a Leica M11P, M11M, M11 monochrome, any of the other M cameras, and also Leica Q. So I am very familiar with the menus. The menus are very simple, as you can see right there, pretty much the same as the Leica Q. So finding things for me is second nature. Now, this camera also comes with a flash, but I don't use the flash that comes with the camera, and instead I use this tiny little Godox flash that you see right here. It is much more powerful. It actually has its own dedicated battery because the one on the Leica shares the battery of your camera. So that could be a positive or negative, depending how you want to look at it. But once you charge this flash is going to give you, pretty good runtime with one charge. And the other thing is it allows you to control the intensity of the flash from these buttons right here. You can turn it on and off as well, has a button right there. And as you can see, a USB-C port. So this little accessory, not only I use it here in the Leica D-Lux A, but I also use it in my Leica M11, and it is very bright. And the best part is that I pay $36 for this one on Amazon. Now let's talk about my approach to street photography. And my approach with the Dlux A is a little bit different than with my full frame cameras. Most of the time I'm in aperture priority on my Leica M11 monochrome or my Leica M11P. They have a full frame sensor. The camera is not light hungry as a Micro Four Thirds sensor may be. I recommend that you configure your auto ISO setting or that you dial your shutter speed manually. It is very easy for the camera, if it's not configured properly, to dump the shutter speed really, really low, resulting into blurry images. So there are 2 methods that you could use, and the one that I'm gonna show you right now is by going to the menu, you go to ISO settings. The first one is gonna be what is your minimum ISO that you're comfortable with, and then the second one is gonna be your shutter speed. I try to be never below 1/25. 250 is ideal, but the way I like to shoot with it is I like to control it manually. So I go here in the menu and set it manually to 50, 500, or whatever the case may be. Now, when it comes to ISO performance, this camera does surprisingly well. I am not afraid to let the ISO rip all the way to 12,500, and the camera performs really well. The noising in Lightroom got pretty serious. If you're not happy, you could always denoise your picture, but I tend to shoot with this camera most of the time in black and white, as you can see right now. Simulation that I use is the high contrast black and white. I just love that because it allows me to gauge my exposure a little bit better. So what I do is I set up right there a picture profile for my black and white, and then I have another one for color. And remember, the black and white preview only is gonna affect the JPEGs. You're always gonna get your DNGs in color, so you know there is no harm in there. And with any Leica cameras that I own, user profiles are a very important tool for you to learn and remember. So when you go to the menu, you're gonna find that tab right there, user profile. So pretty much every configuration that you make, you wanna save it in a user profile. So like for example, right there, you click on that, and then you are gonna be able to go to the part that says manage profiles, and then from there you could actually save to a profile. You can select which profile to save into and record the settings. So when you operate the camera and you are about to tweak, remember, you have to save that setting, because the way these cameras work is by storing all that information, all this configuration in user profiles. And if you don't do that, what's gonna happen is that all the changes that you made in your camera, the next time you restart the camera, all that is gonna be gone. And I think that I wish that Leica could do that automatically, that if I'm in a, let's say my black and white profile, if I change something, to record it automatically. And I hope that Leica can do that in future firmwares, but for right now, you have to do it manually. Let's talk about battery life, because that's another reason to consider this camera. And I've tried a lot of the point and shoot cameras, you know, beginning with the Sony RX100 line, Ricoh, I own both, the 20 and the 40 millimeters. Battery life on all those point and shoots are terrible. In fact, almost on all the point and shoots that I try, battery life is the detriment. Now, when it comes to the Dlux A, battery life is surprisingly amazing. And once again, one battery is gonna last you, at least to me, almost a full day of street photography. And again, it doesn't hurt to carry one of those little tiny batteries with you. So with two batteries, I think you're gonna go through the day with no worries. And there are also some tricks that I do to extend the battery life. One is I set up this button right here to toggle between the EBF. If you see right there, my EBF is on, now the screen is on. And the way that you configure this button to do that is by simply holding this button, and now you can assign any function that you want. And as you can see, the function assigned right now is to toggle EBF and the screen. Now, another thing that you need to remember is that this camera has an autofocus macro, and manual focus switch. And I tend to go back and forth between autofocus and manual focus, and this is really, really nice. Now, the ring is also very smooth and it performs really well. So if you want to do macro or shoot very close, you could leave the switch at autofocus macro. And I noticed that autofocus macro also works well for any type of photography. So if you're gonna be coming very close to your subject, maybe you wanna leave an autofocus macro. And remember, the switch is right here. All right, so let's talk about focusing modes, new day, new outfit, and the one that I use the most is gonna be the field focus. Now, this mode I like it so much because it allows me to make the region smaller or bigger on the fly. And it's gonna be that one right there. If I press any of these arrows that you see right now, take a look at that arrow right there on the box, you know, now rolling this dial, I can make it smaller. And I find this to be very reliable, specifically if I wanna choose to shoot a portrait, I can make the box really small as you see it right now. But if I wanna go and shoot something wider, I can always enlarge it. And again, you know, you just simply tap on any of these arrows, and then using the rear dial, you can change the size of that region. Now, another thing for you to keep in mind, go to menus and choose your autofocus single, autofocus continuous, or intelligence. And the one that I am on most of the time is gonna be the single and the continuous. The autofocus intelligent kind of like chooses by itself what considers best based on the scene that is in front. So the single mode is going to calculate the focus once you have pressed the shutter, and then it's gonna lock it right there. So if you move around, it's not gonna recalculate the focus on that field. Whereas continuous is going to recalculate focus as long as you have your finger half pressed in the shutter. And that one is kind of like good for when you're tracking a person or something like that, an object, is going to be the one that I suggest you use. Now, I know that it's very tempting to use continuous all the time, but you are gonna get very mixed results if you do so. And also it's gonna take a toll in your battery life because it's constantly recalculating focus. Now, the one thing that I want to mention is the crazy dynamic range that you get out of the sensor. The roll off from highlights to shadow is really nice and smooth, but also you can recover tons of details in blown out highlights in post as well as from the shadow. So I don't know how Leica has done that, and I don't know how this smaller sensor than full frame can do that. But when it comes to recoverability, I think that I get pretty much the same recoverability that I get from this sensor than from my Leica M11P. Now, another thing that I want to mention is when people compare this camera versus a Fuji Option X1 or the Ricoh GR3, Ricoh GR3X, and all those versions, this camera, in my opinion, is always gonna come on top if you're looking for focal range. This is the only one out of all those cameras with fixed lenses that is gonna give you the range from 24 to 75. And if you're looking for a camera as a complement of a fixed full frame sensor, for example, or APS-C, well, this camera is gonna give you and deliver in that regard. Now, it is $1,500, it is not cheap, but I think this camera may actually go even more expensive. Remember, this is one that is not made in Germany, it's made in China. So with the tariffs, you know, who knows? Prices of this camera may change very soon. $1,500, if you can get one right now, I would actually jump in and get it before it costs you what, 125% more? That's just crazy, but that's a conversation for another video. All right, guys, so I hope you had enjoyed this video. This is how I use this camera, and these are the reasons why I consider this camera very powerful. A lot of the time, you know, more is not more. And I will list down in the description a list of all the accessories that I use and love for this camera, as well as a code GSHARTER10, so you can get 10% off on your camera strap or wrist strap at allcrown.com. And right now, I am gonna go and capture some images in the rain. Look at this weather. It's very, very bad, but I see a lot of people with umbrellas, so I think I am out. Peace out.